We are talking about the movie Zombified. This is actually a 2012 movie directed and written by Todd Jason Cook. And this is actually a sequel to a movie called Death Metal Zombies that came out in the mid-90s. Although you can kind of watch it obviously without seeing. Now, and I haven't actually seen Death Metal Zombies, and I kind of got the gist about what was going on. It does reference it a little bit, but I think it's fairly easy to understand that it's its own piece. Now, I would say this movie actually has quite a neat idea. It's one that was kind of like ported over from the original movie, from Death Metal Zombies, but nonetheless I think it's quite a fun little twist on the zombie genre. So the crux of this movie is that there is a song, basically, that was recorded by some kind of heavy metal band, that if played, anyone who kind of listened to it turned into a zombie. But the interesting thing here is the way to cure this is to play the song backwards. Now, the film initially takes place in this heavy metal concert, and of course someone decides they're going to play this song over the kind of the PA system, and everyone at this kind of like this gig gets infected and can ultimately get out. And then because this is in 2012 when this was made, the other one was made in the mid-90s. The internet wasn't really a thing in the mid-90s, and ultimately it threatens to get out on more of a kind of a global scale. And it's up to a few kind of survivors that didn't happen to be in the main hall, and a couple of people from the previous movie to try and kind of club together to try and overcome this zombie menace. And there also is the added wrinkle of a serial killer going around in a Nixon mask as well. So there you go, that's kind of your basic setup for this movie. So it's quite interesting, and I've got to say, a really kind of fun premise. This is a very, very low budget movie, but you still can't take away from what is a good idea. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea regardless of the money. So I've got to say, the premise on here carries this movie up a couple of notches for me, all by itself. But I've got to say, I was still quite impressed with this movie, despite the fact it's obviously extremely low budget. I would say the level of kind of extras they have on display here is quite impressive, and the kind of the location shooting, there's obviously some type of concert hall and stuff where they're shooting, loads of extras, loads of kind of zombies running around, loads of gore, loads of blood and guts. And I've got to say, some of the kind of the kill shots were actually pretty good. Again, for a low budget, I was quite impressed with this. There are some kind of like nice kind of like nails through the eyes and stuff like that, and people getting their intestines ripped out, etc, etc. So quite a lot going on here, and obviously the body count is quite high. And you have this added wrinkle where people can necessarily come back from a zombie but don't really remember what's kind of happened to them, which I think adds a real kind of fun dynamic. And I've got to say also the kind of the serial killer angle, where he's kind of leaving these like mannequins out with clues and stuff like that, are pretty creepy. And there's some really fun scenes involving these kind of like these mannequins and stuff that are out as well. So the overall kind of like the element of fun here is definitely within this film. It's a fun, low-budget zombie flick, and I feel if you're a bit of a fan of kind of your B movies, your Z-grade horrors, this is definitely one to check out. So what are the negatives of this film? Well, it is a very low-budget film, so obviously if you are wanting kind of a more polished affair, then obviously you won't maybe kind of not be quite as satisfied with this one, because the budget does show through in a number of ways. For a start, I just feel that this is a little bit underutilised in the lighting here. It could have been a little bit better lit, because a lot of the scenes are just very dark and kind of in the shadow and stuff like that, and they just needed a few more lights on it to try and kind of like to make the kind of the action pop a little bit and stuff like that. The acting as well is a little bit of a mixed bag. I've got to say it's not too bad, considering this is what appears to be somewhat of a kind of amateur production. But again, if you're comparing this to kind of like your kind of like your studio-based straight-to-DVD horrors, the acting's a little bit kind of like hit and miss with some of the kind of the actors here, but by all means not bad, not terrible. Some of the makeup effects I gotta feel were a little lazy. For example, I reviewed Queen Dracula, which had the same problem, where we have like the makeup effects just round the face, whilst the rest of the body is kind of normal skin colour, but the kind of the white makeup or whatever is just around the face. Just don't have the white makeup would be my tip for that one. If you can't do the whole body, just don't have it. I mean, these are people who have just turned into zombies. I don't think you need to kind of like show that they were you know, aged up necessarily. It doesn't really make sense anyway. The other thing I would say this movie is a little long. It's about 20 minutes too long. Because it's a low budget film, it needs to be kind of sharp and punchy and kind of not outstay its welcome. But I feel there's certain scenes here that could be a little bit kind of trimmed. And it's about 20 minutes too long, and this needed to kind of like have a few cuts here and there to make the film a little bit more kind of punchy. Because it just kind of, it does start to drag, and there's only kind of so many times you can see zombies jumping on people until it starts to get a little bit kind of like mundane ultimately. So yeah, about 20 minutes kind of taken out of it. I've got to say as well, the music isn't going to be for everyone. Obviously, the original film was called Death Metal Zombies, and it's kind of more of the same from this film. So if you're not really a heavy metal fan, the kind of like the concert playing of kind of like very heavy kind of music is going to kind of maybe put some people off. And we maybe spend a little bit too long on the band sequences and stuff like that, just because, well, I'm guessing they're friends of the people who made this movie. But overall, I've got to say, I actually had quite a lot of fun with this film. It's a fun zombie movie with quite fun characters, with a really kind of clever premise. I mean, you can say, yeah, it's kind of the same as The Ring, and I guess it's the audio version of The Ring ultimately. But I thought, you know, nonetheless, I still feel it was a good premise, and you've got the added sort of serial killer thing as well. And I just like the way you can kind of like turn people back and forth and stuff like that. Thought that was a really kind of a neat kind of like and quite original idea for a zombie film. Now, Todd Jason Cook, by all accounts, hasn't made any films since this, and this is only kind of getting a wide release now. But it's worth checking out. I actually thought this movie was a lot of fun if you are a fan of low budget horror. So there you go, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.